Glenn, we have a massive, massive, and highly disturbing story that just broke today. A federal judge has been arrested in Milwaukee. First and foremost, can you explain what happened?
Yeah, what happened is Kash Patel's FBI arrested a Milwaukee Circuit Court judge, Judge Hannah Dugan, for allegedly interfering in immigration enforcement matters. What happened was there was somebody who showed up for a court hearing in that Milwaukee Circuit Courthouse, and ICE agents showed up. Apparently the judge, at least according to the reporting thus far, we're still waiting for court documents, the judge told the ICE agents to speak to the chief judge, and when they returned, this immigrant who had appeared was gone. And the allegation, Brian, is that the judge basically helped this person slip out a side door. Now, we don't know if the facts will bear that out or not, but, you know, Kash Patel did some things that are beyond unorthodox. For example, he instantly posted on X, "We've arrested a judge." We believe Judge Dugan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courthouse, the subject being Eduardo Flores Ruiz, allowing the subject, an illegal alien, to evade arrests. Thankfully, our agents chased down the perp on foot, and he's been in custody since. But the judge's obstruction created increased danger to the public. Now, Brian, to my career prosecutor's eye, I have at least two concerns with what Kash Patel posted. First of all, he said expressly, "We believe Judge Dugan did those things." Let me tell you, sport, that was directed at Kash Patel, you better have more than a belief that Judge Dugan did these things. You better have sufficient admissible evidence to satisfy the burden of probable cause to arrest a judge or anybody. The standard is not different to arrest a judge or arrest a career drug dealer. Probable cause is probable cause, and Kash Patel's belief doesn't cut it. He didn't say we have an arrest warrant issued by a federal judge to take Judge Dugan into custody. Now, I am assuming his agents must have had an arrest warrant because, you know, that's kind of criminal procedure and police investigations 101. Not that I would expect Kash Patel to know about that. But, you know, equally horrific is he then, you know, posts something like he's, you know, in a Jimmy Cagney movie, and other, "We chased down the perp," et cetera, et cetera. Maybe one of the reasons he instantly deleted that post, which makes things seem a little bit fishy, is one thing we never do, Brian, not law enforcement agents and not prosecutors. We don't begin to disclose the facts of how the arrest went down. Why? Because we are now poisoning the well of public opinion and the potential jury pool. So maybe that's why somebody pulled Kash aside and said, "Look, Mr. Director, you need to delete your own post." So those are some minor quibbles. But the bottom line is the judge was presented in court today, and she was released, I believe, on her own recognizance. I don't think a bond had to be posted. And what we really have to do is await additional information by way of court documents, not what Kash Patel says did or did not happen.
Glenn, will we know if a judge did sign off on this arrest warrant? Because that seems to be the thing that jumps out at me first and foremost, that clearly they would have had to follow proper procedure, and you're not able to just arrest somebody unless you have a signed warrant to be able to do so. And so that would require a judge's signature. Will we eventually see that warrant if it does exist?
We will. It will become a public document. Ordinarily, when somebody is arrested on a warrant, that warrant is made public once the person is presented in court, because now these become matters of...
So wouldn't that have already been presented then?
It should have been, but we haven't seen anything released. I mean, this literally is breaking news. The judge just walked out of the courthouse, you know, in recent hours. So we have to wait for that. But let me just add one thing. You can arrest somebody without a warrant. So, for example, if you are in hot pursuit of somebody fleeing a bank robbery, you obviously don't have to stop and go acquire an arrest warrant. You arrest that person in hot pursuit. But this is not a hot pursuit case. Police can make what are called probable cause arrests, which means a warrantless arrest because there is some exigency or some need to make that arrest without a warrant. I can't believe in a million years, even the Kash Patel, which equals the Donald Trump FBI, would make a probable cause arrest of a judge without a federal judge, because Judge Dugan is a local judge, without a federal judge issuing an arrest warrant. But more to come on that. There's something else that jumped out at me, though, Brian. And this is a horrific circumstance, regardless of what actually happened. The reason I say that is because either a judge committed federal felonies to help a potential arrestee escape. That would be horrific. And judges can commit crimes, and if they do, they should be held accountable, arrested and prosecuted and given a fair trial. Or the other thing that might have happened is this is just yet another example of dozens of examples of lawlessness by the Trump administration, of abuse of power, abuse of office. We know Donald Trump has been signing unconstitutional executive orders one after another, and judges from coast to coast are telling him so. So this would be part of a pattern of lawlessness by the Trump administration if this is not a legitimate and righteous arrest and prosecution.
Well, look, we have seen the ways in which the Trump administration, Trump himself, has been looking to wield his power against attorneys, and he's largely gotten them to bend the knee to the tune of $1 billion in pro bono legal work that he's got just sitting there on the table for him to use. Now he's kind of shifted his focus toward the judges. Do you think that this is going to have a broader impact in terms of a chilling effect on the judiciary more broadly?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that only the thousands of judges nationwide, state, county, local, and federal can answer. I would love to, in knee-jerk fashion, say no, because judges understand that their work is not always going to be easy. And, you know, there are risks attendant to being a judge today more than ever. But I would like to think most of them will kind of divorce this incident from their day-to-day duties of judging without fear or favor, particularly without fear of a potentially corrupt presidential administration misusing the powers of their law enforcement agencies to go after judges who truly have done nothing wrong, but their decisions displease Donald Trump. But Brian, there's one other thing I want to touch on, because in fairness, we need to, pay attention to both sides of the equation with respect to what Judge Dugan did or did not do. And what I want to do is just quote a very short statement that Judge Dugan's lawyer gave to the media after this first court hearing at which Judge Dugan appeared. Here's what the lawyer said. Quote, Ms. Dugan wholeheartedly regrets and protests her arrest. It was not made in the interest of public safety, and we asked the judge, to allow her release. Here's why I bring that to our viewers' attention. In fairness, because ordinarily what you see on the steps of the courthouse after a defendant has first been presented in court, the defense attorney will say something like, my client is absolutely innocent. My client committed no crime, did nothing wrong, should not have been arrested, should not be prosecuted, but if she is, we welcome the opportunity to defeat the prosecution's case in court. This attorney for Judge Dugan said the exact opposite. Basically said, well, my client, Judge Dugan, regrets and protests her arrest. I'm sorry, as a career prosecutor, that is a red flag to me. Now, it may be that the judge, the defendant, said to her lawyer, listen, no grandstanding, I want to be circumspect, I want to be understated in the statement you made, but ordinarily, if a judge has been wrongfully arrested, having committed no crime or done nothing wrong, I would sure want my attorney to make that crystal clear from the very first statement my attorney gave to the press. So, as we said a few minutes ago, Brian, judges can break the law, and if they do, when they do, they need to be held accountable. But we really have to wait to see exactly what the evidence is, because Kash Patel can talk about his belief until he's blue in the face. I need to see the actual evidence with my own eyes before I'm inclined to believe him.
Now, in terms of Kash Patel commenting on an ongoing investigation, is there any exposure for him breaking protocol, or even further, is there some law in place that would prevent tampering with the jury pool, for example, by virtue of making these statements?
Yeah, he may have engaged in an ethical misstep by beginning to talk about, the chase. We had to chase down the perp. I can't tell you how inappropriate that is for any law enforcement agent to say, disclosing information about the arrest, never mind the FBI director. But, is he likely to face any sanction? Very unlikely, because who is going to examine the unethical conduct of Kash Patel inside the Department of Justice?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be Pam Bondi. Why wouldn't it be Pam Bondi?
And she's all over that because goodness knows, she is just a straight arrow following the law without fear or favor.
Well, at this point then, I guess the last question here becomes, what are next steps and when will we learn more?
Yeah, we're going to hear something, I think, very soon. We may see some court documents released. We will probably have a next court appearance very soon, within a matter of days or perhaps a couple of weeks. So we'll begin to learn more about whether this, one, was a righteous arrest, and two, whether a prosecution will go forward or not. At least as of today, the federal prosecutors stood up in court and were prepared to support the charges of, obstructing this immigration operation. But we're really going to need to know more about what the actual evidence is, not just what mouthpieces say about what the evidence is.
Right, and we've got plenty of that. No shortage of mouthpieces saying what the evidence is. We will, of course, stay on top of this. This is a major story that's just broken through right now. So for those who are watching, if you want to follow along, please make sure to subscribe. The links to both of our channels are right here on the screen. It's a great way to support us and independent media more broadly.